If you've been on the World Wide Web in recent years, I'm sure you've seen people ironically call themselves gamers as if it was their defining personality trait. On top of this, you have probably seen the Lost meme mocking a random old gaming comic's poor attempt at covering a serious tragedy. What most people don't realize is that these old gaming comics from the 2000s used to not be just jokes, but an earnest internet subculture back in the 2000s. But to understand how this all started and where it went wrong, we'll have to look at the creator of Lost and his rise and fall from early internet stardom, Tim Buckley, and his online series Ctrl+Alt+Delete. But before we go any further in today's video, I just need to point out that I'm extremely hungry right now, which leads into my sponsor, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs create each meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. I've personally been using Factor for many years now because I appreciate that they allow me to hit my diet goals. You can choose their weekly menu with 35 options, including popular ones like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. On top of this, they have over 60 add-on options, including the juice I got this week. I personally like using Factor for lunch on weekdays because I don't have to go out to a store to buy something. It's just right in the fridge ready to go. This allows me to eat something decent, then go right back to making YouTube videos. Today I'm having the chicken Florentine with spinach and garlic chili cauliflower. As a person who's had a lot of frozen meals over his lifetime, I can attest to the fact that you're not going to get cauliflower or chicken breast that taste this good coming out of a TV dinner. So to help support this quality YouTube sponsorship, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50GFM to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50GFM at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. At that price, you really have nothing to lose. To understand this man, we must first discuss one of the most influential webcomics of all time. Penny Arcade was created in 1998 by Mike Krahulik and Jerry Holkins. It starred two best friends who served as their fictional counterparts. The strip had humble beginnings, finding a niche for their gamer-centric humor. This novelty quickly turned into a cash cow. By 2005, it was one of the most popular comics online, spinning off into an entire convention called PAX. This success inspired countless imitators, which included a young artist named Tim Buckley. Mr. Buckley was born in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The young boy grew up playing games, with his family privileged enough to afford every console known to man. He spent his teen years on the ground floor of PC gaming under the username Absath. It was here that he first showed off his artistic abilities on the World Wide Web. I was always drawing, always practicing. I feel that my artistic skill comes partially from natural talent and partially from a lot of hard work and patience. Absath was active in the modding community for Star Wars Jedi Outcast. His earliest known creation was an original Jedi called Vithran. It was impressive enough for others to enlist Buckley's help on their own projects, but that slowed down as real life became a priority. After high school, Tim took a year off before moving to Rhode Island. He enrolled into college for computer and film animation. The student had dreams of working in the video game industry. However, the program proved unsatisfying, and he dropped out after a year. During this period, Tim admitted drawing was the only thing keeping him sane. Having become a fan of strips like Mall Monkeys and Penny Arcade, it led him to an epiphany. I know I have the ability, the talent, and the imagination to be successful at it. I've always been a fan of other webcomics, and it struck me one day that, hey, I could do that, so I did. This is when he created the comic Ctrl+Alt+Delete, with the first strip posted on October 23, 2002. So it's a strip about two guys who sit around and play video games. Seems a tad cliche, doesn't it? Nah, it's tried and true. Besides, we have a hook. Oh really? What? We've got a third character. What? The series featured two friends named Ethan and Lucas, based on himself and his real-life best friend. Ethan's day-to-day outfit is the same t-shirt and jeans combo I was wearing when I first drew him. By then, the 21-year-old was back in Massachusetts. For a while, he published strips daily, with each one taking 1 to 4 hours to make. That consistency in a still blossoming niche led CAD to quickly garner an audience. Within a few weeks, the comic had gone viral, with one garnering over 200,000 hits. An entire community emerged through word of mouth. It wasn't long until he rivaled Penny Arcade in readership, who reached out to help with merch. By 2005, it had become his full-time job, as Tim toured around the US at various conventions.
Where did you get the idea from Chef Brian and what he says? Yeah. Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Alcohol.
And alcohol. Too much alcohol and a deadline.
Buckley even started a PAX competitor called Digital Overload. So that's what Digital Overload is about, removing all the extra convention BS, dedicating a whole event just to Ctrl+Alt+Delete and its fans. The entire phenomena was truly a product of its time, perfectly embodying early 2000s gamer culture. That also meant that CAD fell into a lot of common tropes. For example, the addition of a gamer girl character named Lila. Breaking the age-old stereotype that girls don't play video games, Lila enjoys a LAN party as much as the next guy. She's smart and beautiful, with a passion for a good first-person shooter. She quickly captured Ethan's attention, and though she is much more calm and responsible than him, she finds herself inexplicably drawn to Ethan's silly personality. She enjoys long walks between dungeons in her favorite RPGs, romantic fragging by the glow of plasma rifle discharge, and sensitive noobs. Lila was introduced in January of 2003. In her first strip, Ethan doubts someone like her could even exist, before getting beat up for touching her boobs. The two began dating shortly thereafter in the strip, with Buckley using her to riff off presumably real interactions with women. Ethan, can I ask you a question? Of course, you can ask me anything. Do you watch porn? How can you ask me that? There's no way I can't answer. If I say yes, you'll get upset. If I say no, and you find out I'm lying, you'll get upset. So that's a yes? No. So it's a no. Yes, I mean no. Fuck. This shift was questioned by early readers, who he referenced directly. In one comic, the two are about to go on a date, only to be interrupted by a viewer stand-in. This is a gaming comic. You need gaming references. What are you thinking? Huh? November saw the addition of a fully sentient robot named Zeke. He was built by Ethan using parts from his Xbox. Hey, listen up, scraphead. If it was up to me, you'd still be inanimate. I don't feel I should have to worry about what my consoles are in the mood for. But given the situation, we're going to have to work on some compromises here. Fine, click. That's where he put the CD tray? Yes'm. Urge to game fading. Oh sure, now that you've got me all worked up. These four characters became the comic's staple cast, interrupting his usual gag strips with sitcom-esque storylines. That included the creation of Winter Inmas, which turned into an annual event. It was envisioned as a 7-day holiday for gamers, from January 25th to the 31st. Wear gaming t-shirts, draw gaming logo tattoos on your arms and hands, find interesting ways to wear gaming accessories as fashion accessories. Even dress up as your favorite gaming character or console, if you're so inclined. Gamers themselves are extraordinary people. There are millions of people worldwide that enjoy video games. Some are hardcore fanatics, some are casual gamers, but we are all part of the same community, and it's a community to be proud of. This also encouraged fans to send letters to developers they appreciated. These people are directly responsible for providing us with such entertaining material, and they deserve to know that they are appreciated. Write them a letter wishing them a happy Wintermas, and letting them know how thankful you are for the work they do. Now, even back in the day, this all wasn't without its critics. A writer for the Boston Phoenix called Wintermas an obnoxious gamer holiday, which I don't know how anyone could deny. But Tim was confident in doing whatever he wanted, which was both a blessing and a curse. A good example of this was his open letter to Jack Thompson. The now disbarred lawyer is known for going after gaming in the 2000s. The strip has Tim himself appearing to explain that gamers were peaceful, yet ends with a rather threatening message. My name is Tim Buckley. I'm a 24-year-old gamer. I've played every violent video game in existence, and I have never killed anyone. There are millions of gamers just like me, and we're getting sick of people like you blaming your problems on us. Ignorance causes violence, not video games. Man up and take responsibility. We outnumber you, and the people that think like you don't f with us. As I kept on reading through these old comics, it became clear that many of them inspired the ironic Gamers Rise Up meme that would come to fruition over a decade later. It's hard to envision a time where people unironically treated gamer as a label in the same tier as your religion or political affiliation, but the 2000s were a wild time. This attitude led Tim to butt heads with his own community quite often. It was usually nothing serious, but the worst resulted in a massive, often forgotten scandal. You see, the forum on his site had a section called The Rantings of Madmen. It became a place for edgy comedy similar to 4chan and Something Awful. The story goes that on 9/11/2005, a thread was made accusing Buckley of sexting minors. There are many varying accounts of this story, with most claiming that the victim was a user named Jackie. The tale's accompanied by a photo alleged to be his crotch with her name written above it. To be clear, these details are both untrue. Regardless, the following is an excerpt from the site Oh Internet. Jackie was actually a misanthropic, semi-psycho bitch who was friends with the victim, and the notorious photo of Tim's crotch was a Photoshop done by someone else at the time. The closest we have to a first-hand account of the fallout, since it's not been well archived, is a post by Jackie 3 days later after the story broke. Before Absath was an internet god, he liked to go to the Mall Monkeys forum and instant message girls he saw in the pictures thread. He'd ask them to join his forum and swap pictures. As a result, a 17-year-old Amber got sent pictures of his cock, and he had phone sex with a 16-year-old named Maya. He was 22 at the time. To further cast these claims into doubt, if this took place in 2002, he would be at most 21 at the time, and not 22 as they claim. The Cartoonist responded to the baseless claims by banning anyone who replied to the thread. That included users who were skeptical or even defended him. This led many to retaliate with spam until Buckley demoted all of his mods and deleted the entire subforum. This was explained in a post explaining the decision. Previously, I was content to let that be the one section of the forum with fewer rules and guidance, and just pretend it didn't exist. What they turned it into was a den of hate, racism, retardedness, and childishness. It took for them to start attacking me to finally go back in there and discover what it had turned into. I don't want anyone attacking anyone else on these forums, but how stupid do you have to be to start attacking the person who runs them? As a result, the forums became stricter, with any criticism of Buckley or his comics banned. Despite the crackdowns, these rumors left a stain on his reputation, which followed him for a long time. Still, Ctrl+Alt+Delete managed to attract 300,000 readers every day. Moving on to December of 2005, a debate was sparked amongst web cartoonists. Many of the big names lamented facing harsh criticism despite working for free. That included an artist named Hawk, who suggested fans email creators they liked. Buckley disagreed, writing about the matter on his website. He personally felt appreciated enough, and went out of his way to encourage criticism. We post our work on the internet for free, where it is immediately accessible to millions of people. When you are going to put your work in front of that many people, you have to go in with the understanding that not everyone is going to like what you do. This take led multiple artists to explain their opposing view on his forum. Strangely, Tim decided to ban them, delete the thread, and accuse them of being jealous. Fine, then go be bitter elsewhere that someone 10 years younger than you is doing it bigger and better than you ever did, or ever will. I don't know why you felt the need to come to my forums to try and cause shit. In a single hour, I get more emails than you get in a week, so if you want to bitch and moan about me somewhere else, by all means, knock yourself out. But the instant you think you're going to come to my forums and tell me I'm lying, you'd better believe I'm going to ban your sorry ass.
Ban world, population U.
Happy Webcomic Appreciation Day. I know you little webcomics love the attention. It's worth pointing out Hawk illustrated the cover of his first book a year prior. The back and forth led him to burn a lot of bridges. Many felt that the fame was getting to his head. A common story from around this time is that Tim sent a legal threat to a high schooler. This image is attributed to him with the text ridiculing their art. Oh great, I'm drawn by an amateur, jeez. The rest is a long rant explaining why exactly it bothered him. I don't allow anyone to take Ctrl+Alt+Delete into their own hands with the exception of fan art, especially animation and film. The reason for this is that someday I plan to undertake these projects myself. As it turns out, CAD was on the cusp of its own animated series. Tim got numerous offers over the years to bring his characters to life. However, none materialized until he was approached by Blind Ferret Entertainment. They offered to help finance the first season with hopes of pitching the show to network executives. This never came to fruition. The show ended up being released in 2006 behind a paywall. It was part of his own subscription service, CAD Premium, priced at $25 a year. It ran for 24 episodes across 2 seasons. CAD the Animated Series now sits at 1.4 stars on IMDb. It is often considered one of the worst cartoons of all time, citing poor voice acting, harsh mixing, and subpar animation. Each episode is just 5 minutes long. The first season's finale is a 3-part Star Wars parody.
Use the ownage, Ethan.
Yes! I'm bored.
The trilogy places gaming hater lawyer Jack Thompson in the role of Darth Vader, as well as bizarrely Hillary Clinton as Emperor Palpatine.
Welcome, young Ethan. I have been expecting you. I look forward to completing your training. In time, you will call me President.
You are gravely mistaken. You'll never turn me against video games.
The cartoon was so unpopular, even his fans refused to defend it. Ryan Summer, the VP of Blind Ferret Entertainment, later said its failure nearly bankrupted them. This led to a 2-year gap between seasons to reformulate how to make the show. The second series recast several voices and looks noticeably worse than the first.
Damn it, Ethan. Look what you've done. You've finally gone and driven me bat crazy. I'm seeing 2 of you.
Yeah, Ethan, look what you've done. Me? Are you kidding? I belong here. You're a science experiment.
The second season became such a punching bag, a show was created called CAD the Annotated Series. It invited viewers to jeer using YouTube's old annotation feature. The entire effort was preserved manually after annotations were removed in 2018. It's a testament to how much this fueled Tim's ever-growing number of detractors. Moving forward, in 2008, MTV held an event called Gamers Week 2.0. This got CAD mentioned on primetime TV.
Now our show is ending, but you keep playing at 8 p.m. Hit up xfire.com and you play with celebrity gamers. Tonight you can compete with Ctrl+Alt+Delete, one of the most internationally popular webcomics focused on gaming culture.
To promote his cartoons DVD, Buckley started sharing videos of his art process. The most well-known is a time-lapse he did for Christmas. The footage shows him dragging and dropping assets. This signified a wider issue some had with his art style, that all his characters used the same few faces. This was mocked with a remarkably similar emoticon, a capital B caret capital U. It spread across the web like wildfire, still being associated with his work to this day. By 2007, it became clear that the internet was turning on Tim Buckley. It was this year that he got a page on Encyclopedia Dramatica and a viral blog post that attempted to diagnose him as a narcissist. Then his peers outed him for vandalizing their Wikipedia pages. They traced his IP to an account called Thrindle. Tim deleted the entire wiki entry for PvP and replaced it with PvP sucks. If you look, you'll see at various points Tim vandalized his own page anonymously, then posed as CAD fans admonishing the vandalism. Yahtzee, host of the web series Zero Punctuation, wrote a post about his long-standing hatred of Ctrl+Alt+Delete. The promise of easy praise and popularity keeps him mired in his copy-pasted, shoulder-hunched, droopy-eyed, slack-jawed magnum opus. For having run a gag-a-day strip for however many years, Buckley still has no idea how to structure a joke. In addition to his same-face syndrome, many criticize the use of stock photos for backgrounds of his comics. It's actually a pretty common practice, and in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. But he lost all charitability as people looked for ways to get under his skin. One rumor that began circulating around this time was known as the Great Steak Robbery. Trolls discovered that in May of 2001, a man named Tim Buckley was charged with misdemeanor shoplifting. This took place in West Warwick, Rhode Island, which is where the cartoonist lived at the time. Officer Jay Allen responded to a shoplifting call at Stop and Shop on May 26th. Upon Allen's arrival, he saw the suspect, Timothy Buckley, laying on the floor of the security office, tired and out of breath. According to store security, Buckley was seen shoplifting and needed to be physically led to the office. Security guards said he was cooperative for a short time and then tried to escape again, fleeing towards the door. Allen got Buckley up off the floor and proceeded to pat him down. Allen recovered 2 packets of El Paso seasoning in his front right pocket. The store security said they observed Buckley on the cameras putting some items down the front of his pants. A veal cutlet and top round steak were recovered from his waistband. According to the report, these were the items he tried to push down his pants. In total, $23.35 in goods was recovered from Buckley. Throughout it all, Buckley kept working on his comics. By then, the main cast were fleshed out in more serious storylines. These delved into the characters' personal lives, covering subjects like cheating, incompatibility, and breakups. Lucas began online dating, meeting up with a woman named Kate. He pretends to not know her when she's unexpectedly fat. The two go on a date where he awkwardly feigns interest. Internal monologue. I don't know who the hell you are. I'm here because I felt guilty. I have no prospects. I'm boring. This is not the boyfriend you're looking for. That is actually pretty cool, but I can't seem too interested or you'll think I'm into you. Kate then asks, so what do you usually look for in girls? And Lucas thinks, not you. Looks are important, but nobody can say that out loud without sounding like an asshole. When they got home, it was revealed that she was wearing a fat suit to test his character. It's worth emphasizing that the drama took place between gag strips. There was no shortage of gamer jokes, random humor, and even slapstick. It made for a bizarre contrast as Ethan and Lila began planning their wedding. Then in February of 2008, it was revealed she was pregnant with their child. This conversation takes over the next 5 strips. It had mixed reception, with many confused over the comic's direction. Were they going to have a child and introduce a brand new character? That led the cartoonist to make a post acknowledging their response. I have been waiting to get to this part of the story for over 2 years now, since before Ethan proposed to Lila. It's pretty exciting, and I'm glad it's gotten such an enormous reaction. The story progressed over the next few months, showing the couple's journey each step of the way. Then, while at work, Ethan gets a call that his girlfriend is in the hospital. The next strip, simply titled Loss, shows him rushing to comfort her after learning she's miscarried. The 4-panel comic has no text, expecting the dramatic turn to speak for itself.
That was really bad.
The days after covered how the main cast reacted to this miscarriage with very few jokes. That was, mind you, while still being interspersed with unrelated gag strips. The tonal clash sparked uproar across the web. There was an immediate demand for answers, which Buckley tried to provide in a blog post the same day. This shed light on his motivations, revealing it was part of a grand plan he'd written many years ago. He emphasized it wasn't a joke or simply a twist, coming from a desire to stress test their relationship. I know from personal experience what it can do to a relationship. So many years ago, long before I started the comic, I was in a relationship and we suffered a miscarriage. Now, this relationship was toxic to begin with and doomed to fail regardless, so that the miscarriage was the straw that broke the camel's back came as no surprise. I saw the emotions it can bring up firsthand, and I saw how it could truly hurt someone. It's a tough thing to handle because it's nobody's fault. There's nobody you can blame. Whatever intent he may have had, the internet didn't care. The arc ignited widespread mockery and criticism. It was seen as the pivotal moment that sent CAD from a mediocre comic to a comedy train wreck. Something Awful started a series of dedicated threads ripping his work apart, amassing thousands of replies. They gave him the nickname Bum Tickly. At PAX 2008, the creators of Penny Arcade ridiculed him in an interview. I think Tim Buckley is the Antichrist, and I think that miscarriage storyline was the first horseman of the apocalypse. Cyanide and Happiness did a parody that ends with an excerpt of his blog post. Yahtzee highlighted it in an episode about video game webcomics.
Let's say for sake of example that you're sick of making companion cube jokes and suddenly do a serious storyline about your female character having a miscarriage. Obviously you'd need to have several blood clots in your brain to think this is a good idea. You're established as a wacky humour comic, so this is going to be an awkward tonal shift at best and hugely disrespectful of the subject matter at worst.
Despite how big it was at the time, I don't think anyone could have predicted how everlasting Lost would become. There was a flood of parodies from sites like 4chan and Tumblr, editing the original or recreating it using scenes from other works. It got to the point 4chan had to ban threads about the subject. This abundance only led people to up the ante. The jokes grew increasingly higher effort, from 3D recreations to musical tributes. Then it started to get minimalist and abstract. The direction revealed a simple but easy to recognize formula. Panel 1, a straight vertical line. Panel 2, 2 straight vertical lines. The one on the right slightly lower than the one on the left. Panel 3, 2 even vertical lines. Panel 4, a vertical line and a horizontal line. This revelation changed everything. It wasn't long until subliminal references started showing up everywhere. The mere presence of 4 lines became enough to raise suspicions. It turned into a game of pattern recognition. The strip's ability to inspire what feels like millions of variations has led to it persist to this very day. Lost has its very own entry on Wikipedia, and it's arguably the most famous comic book page in history. I mean, chances are it's probably the only reason you clicked on this video. With that said, what needs to be stressed is that this all took place gradually over the next decade. It would be a few years before it overshadowed Ctrl+Alt+Delete, as the comic lost relevance at the same speed Lost gained. The CAD story continued with the couple getting married in the final months of 2009. They each gave their vows, with the art style changing to accommodate the importance of the scene. Life dropped an epic husband, the rarest of its loot table, and I was lucky enough to win the need role. We've had our ups and downs, but we've come through it together, and there is nobody I would rather share my life with than you. The main cast took over the comic for a few months before slowing down into its usual mix of story and gags. The art style shifted, which also had mixed reception. In 2010, a new character was introduced named Abby. She loitered around Ethan's store trying to exploit their company policies. It was discovered her outfit was lifted from a drawing called Punk Girl by Hector Martin. Buckley issued an apology before going back and changing her outfit. Around this time, Something Awful user Evelyn Poor did a statistical analysis of the past 1,700 comics. This found 94.44% featured the signature Buckley face. The other categories included racist jokes at only 1.53%. Unfortunately, that streak was lost a year later with a comic from April of 2011. To get their robot companion into a movie theater, they disguise him as a black man. Still, I don't think anyone will get suspicious. A quiet black man in a movie theater? You draw less attention walking in there with a robot! This got so much backlash, he was forced to edit the strip 4 separate times. The first changed the punchline to, yes, because all black men have glowing green eyes and need to plug into an electrical outlet every few hours. The yes was changed to nah, before all references to his skin color were removed. During this era, the crowds at Tim Buckley's event Digital Overload petered out. He tried to crowdfund the 2011 show, but the campaign failed at only 4% of its goal. It seems even Buckley was getting tired of the same routine, as a year later he started what became the death of his protagonist. The storyline begins with Ethan exploring their basement. This is where his projects from their old apartments are stored. He accidentally triggers a time machine which teleports him to the future. Ethan is then kidnapped by his future self, who explains he's from the distant year of 2018. It turns out by creating Zeke, he set in motion the event that would end the world. Earlier in the comic, a female robot was introduced named Embla. Future Ethan reveals she hated humans and believed they couldn't coexist. He was forced to destroy her, only for Zeke to retaliate with an army of robots behind him. The military weren't prepared to fight an enemy like that. Our defenses were controlled by computers, and the robots could access it all. They killed millions, took thousands into slavery, payback for the years of machine servitude. Then he reveals what happened to Lila. He said he didn't want me dead, but that he had broadcast to the world that I was the one that created him. that I had brought this upon them. He wanted me to know what it was like to be truly alone in the world, like him. And then he made me watch as he killed Lila right in front of me. The machine was only turned on twice before the war, with the first being when Zeke was first made. He tells present Ethan to go back in time, but they're interrupted by patrolling robots and forced to flee. They escape outside only for present Ethan to get stuck in a booby trap, leading to his future self abandoning him. With help, he manages to escape and goes back to the time machine. There he punches his future self for trying to steal his life. The two argue before getting interrupted by the officer who let him go. It was another trap, and to his shock, future Ethan shoots her. If that all wasn't bad enough, the machine begins to explode, threatening to destroy all time. Before future Ethan can sacrifice himself to turn it off, he's shot by the officer. This leads present Ethan to break down crying, remembering his friends and family before jumping into the portal and pressing the button to save the world. In what is probably the biggest missed opportunity in the whole series, the button he presses is not Ctrl+Alt+Delete. Following this, it's confirmed Ethan is dead, officially concluding his storyline after 10 years. In the epilogue, Lucas has a child who he names after his late best friend, and Lila starts a church of gaming as some kind of monument to the dead main character. This ending naturally didn't go over well with critics of his dramatic writing. The strangle scene in particular was mocked with its own slew of edits. For his part, the artist wrote a blog post explaining the series' future direction. I planned out all of these story ideas for the characters, and things were fine for a long time. But eventually, as I began to grow as a writer and wanted to try new things, I started to crash up against the boundaries of the characters and their established personalities. That led to becoming dissatisfied with the characters, and starting to feel stifled by them. First and foremost, Ctrl+Alt+Delete is going to refocus on being a primarily video game and pop culture comic strip. It's where the comic started, and it's still something I love to do. It's also simply the best use of the formats, but we'll get to that in a second. Tim used this time to focus on other series, which spun off from CAD over the years. These included The Campaign, The Console Wars, and StarCast Chronicles. Ethan and Lucas didn't reappear for 2 years, with the only exception being to commemorate Comic 2000. They finally made a true return in 2014 with a complete reboot called Analog D-Pad. It turned the gamers into vigilante superheroes in a radically different style. And that for the most part is where the original wrapped up, with his new storyline continuing to this day. 2014 is also when Lost took off as a meme on the broader internet, introducing CAD to millions of new eyes. There was enough interest to fund a 10-year anthology set, with its Kickstarter generating over $600,000. Ever since this virality, Lost has come to overshadow all the comic's previous scandals. It landed Tim interviews with numerous outlets, including a profile in New York Magazine. He reminisced on the strip's creation and his thoughts on its continued relevance. I think maybe I went into the storyline with solid intentions, and a solid idea of where I wanted to take it, but perhaps didn't commit as thoroughly as I should have in practice. I think I was both afraid of miscalculating a woman's perspective on that particular subject, and not confident enough in my dramatic writing abilities to do it justice. Ctrl+Alt+Delete has since become subject to countless video essays, with many viewing it as a symbol of the era it was created in. It even lives on through these parodies with an entire ecosystem of ironic video game webcomics. Ethan's gamer holiday, Wintermas, was even referenced in the second season of the Adult Swim show Smiling Friends.
I was actually just about to go home and celebrate Wintermas.
And with that, we reach the end of the story of Tim Buckley. This is a tale of a man that truly could only become famous in one very small sliver of human history. Sure, we can all cringe at Ctrl+Alt+Delete now, but 25 years ago, gaming wasn't as accepted in the mainstream, and there was a need for this sort of content. While his comic wasn't that great, Tim was at least consistent with it and built an impressive audience by early internet standards. While he may go down as the lost guy, to me he should also be seen as a pioneer of making a living as an online content creator. Because as much as we laugh at them now, these early webcomics were kind of the predecessors to YouTubers like me.